Before we begin, I'd just like to say that this video is totally not a parody of Sliphantom's Unicum guides for World of Tanks, and that they totally did not inspire me to do this video. You also should totally not check out his channel, because he makes totally awful videos. Let's begin. The 1993 Ferrari F50 Gt is basically a giant go-kart with a big engine attached to it and an even bigger wing on top of it all. It's a literal race car for the road, built to compete in GT1 with the likes of Porsche, McLaren, and Lotus, but sadly it never did, as only 3 chassis were ever built. But happily those 3 chassis were enough for Forza to give us what is essentially a Le Mans car in a Horizon game. Thank you Ferrari, very cool. I don't really like driving an S2. Simply put, 90% of Horizon players can't even handle the power of A-Class, so when you put them in S2, it's obviously going to end up in disaster. These people can't handle this much speed, not to mention that an overwhelming majority of players don't even know how to tune cars for S2, so they just make them all-wheel drive, slap on Forza Aero, and cram as much power into the thing as they can. To sum it up, people don't have any fucking clue of what they're doing in S2, and that's why I'm here to tell you about the only car I drive when I'm forced to play this class. It's not all-wheel drive, but you still have amazing grip and exit speed. It's not engine swapped, but you still have a good enough speed to not be left behind on the straights. And lastly, it doesn't have an ugly wing and front splitter, but you still go through corners like an F1 car, and in this guide I'll teach you how to make every single penny spent on this car be worth it. To teach you how to make S2 bearable, we have brought here our studio's professional racing driver. Some say he was actually born a skeleton. All we know is he is. Sans from Undertale. Let's watch. This car has unbelievable levels of grip through the corners. While everyone else will most likely slow down massively or simply slide out into the grass or the wall, you are able to maintain most of your speed throughout most corners thanks to your incredible levels of downforce and grip. Unlike previous guides, I will not be showing you how to take individual corners with this car, because you shouldn't be driving S2 if you don't know how to corner. Instead, I will be teaching you how to do the hardest thing in S2, overtaking. Because of the nature of this game's bandwidth and the high speeds involved, overtaking in S2 can prove to be extremely difficult. To successfully make your way to the top of the pack, it's important to remember that, although you're going at extremely high speeds, you need to remain calm. Observe not only your opponent, but most importantly the track ahead of you, and plan your overtakes. If your opponent likes hugging the inside, use your superior downforce to overtake him on the outside of a long, sweeping corner. If he likes to leave the inside open, use your absurdly good brakes to dive bomb him up the inside of a tight corner and force your way through. Do not ram though. Ramming is bad and is reserved for people who drive all-wheel drive swapped cars in S2. In other words, faggots. Your biggest weakness is that, although you're extremely grippy once you get going, you're still rear-wheel drive in the end. Which means you still suffer from rear-wheel drive related issues. Your launch is bad compared to all-wheel drive, and if you're too greedy with the throttle you'll spin out. Also, this car is arguably one of the best S2 cars for asphalt, but because it's rear-wheel drive, it's absolutely awful in the wet, and will require extremely precise amounts of throttle control to get a good position in. Also, because this is pretty much a race car, you're very low to the ground, which means hitting a curb or a bump, or going on the grass can cause you to lose control very easily. There is only one real fix for this, and that is driving fast, but carefully. Obviously that is a lot easier said than done. Just try your best to stick to the road. Now that you've mastered all of this, it's time to move on to the car itself. Thank you for showing us how to drive, Sans from Undertale. We'll be building the F50 Gt for S2 as a rear-wheel drive car, because if you're watching this video you're probably a super manly man who doesn't afraid of anything. As usual, we'll start with the tires. Because this is basically a race car for the road, it comes with race tires stock, so just make them as thick as you can on the back since you're rear-wheel drive, and upgrade track width all around. There is no drivetrain upgrade option, and platform and handling just gives you the option to have rally suspension. So from there, go to the engine, and get a race intake manifold. followed by race valves, and, although our PI is already at 998, get race oil and cooling. That was quick, wasn't it? So let's hurry up and tune our car furthermore. As usual with cars that have adjustable aero, we'll start with that. Tune your front aero to full and your back to about 60 to 80% depending on whether or not you want oversteer or understeer respectively. For gearing, adjust your final drive towards acceleration until your top speed is 225 miles per hour or 360 kilometers per hour. For alignment, keep the stock camber values and get 0.12 out at the front and 0.12 in at the rear. For ride height, I keep it as low as possible to get as many G's through the corners as I can, but if you're scared of curbs and grass, keep it 3 ticks away from minimum. Get 90% braking force pressure, so your brakes don't lock up. And lastly, tune your differentials acceleration to 50% and deceleration to 50%. And that's it. If you feel like all of that was too complicated, you can just download the tune from the Forza storefront. My gamer tag is Flamethrower XXX. Now that you finally have an S-Tech car that isn't an all-wheel drive V12 swapped abomination that flies off the first corner it sees, go get some podium finishes. And remember that, although this car is one of the best S-Tech cars, it's probably not the 100% absolute best, it's just my favorite. So broaden your horizons a bit and try out other cars if you somehow like this godforsaken class. Goodbye and thank you for watching.